Okay, well, I guess we'll make a start then. Thank you both for joining me. Obviously joined today by Nigel Travis, Chairman, and Chief Executive Danny Macklin. How are you both doing?
Well, considering I'm in my house here in Wellesley, which I don't think our fans have ever been here. One or two may have been, but see, we're in downtown Boston. It's a little bit of a miserable day, but getting our front yard prepared, and it's not dissimilar weather from over there.
Bit hotter here today, I think.
Well, we had snow 2 days ago.
I'll say, where's the snow gone, Nigel, from the last video we saw?
Yeah, well, we had a little bit of heat the day after, Danny, so that's got rid of it.
Good stuff. Danny, yourself?
Yeah, I'm all good, thank you. Yeah, working from home and in these very difficult and challenging times. And I apologise now, there's a lot of background. It's bath time for the boys, so it's almost as raucous as a dressing room at Leyton Orient.
Brilliant stuff.
After a win.
Yeah, after a win.
We've asked for questions from all around supporters. So we've had some in from Twitter and Facebook, and a few in via email as well. So we'll jump straight into them. First one, we'll start with you, Nigel. Mark Shepherd's asked, how are the players that tested positive, and has there been any more cases within the club?
I think we had 2 players who were found to be positive a couple of weeks ago. We've had no more since. We've had a couple of relatives who unfortunately have passed away as a result of it, relatives of staff members. I have to say, I went to the doctor this morning on Zoom, just for a regular meeting. He scared the hell out of me because he said, "You're 70, you shouldn't be going out, etc., etc." So, I mean, I think we've got to take this very seriously, and I think the question, Luke's a great opportunity to reinforce we care about our fans. We'd ask you to follow all the instructions of the health authorities, because this could be a long haul. He said it was going to be a long haul. So we just want everyone to be very mindful of their health and safety.
Fantastic. So a lot of the questions will dart around into different subjects. So if we do go over a couple of things, apologies to people watching if we kind of go over the same areas. But as we open up a bit wider now, we'll start with a question from Christopher Berlin. So to Danny, he said, what will happen if games get played behind closed doors? Will season ticket holders get their money back or a discount?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Chris. We are meeting staff and board literally every day at the moment. We're discussing every single possibility, every scenario. That includes finishing the season behind closed doors. We've reduced crowds. I think behind closed doors will probably be the most likely scenario. And what we'll be presenting to season ticket holders is every single option going. We clearly are in difficult and challenging and financial times, and we'll get onto that more in a moment. But yeah, a season ticket holder, if they want their money back, they'll be able to apply for that refund process. We'll make that very, very crystal clear. And we'll be putting a number of options that will be available to fans. But yeah, rest assured, we will not be making anyone out of pocket.
Fantastic. On to the next one from George Powell, and it's one on the back of, I guess, some unconfirmed rumours about leagues potentially being regionalised, League One and League Two. Question simply is, what's the club's view on it? So, Danny, if you want to start with yourself and then on to Nigel.
Yeah, myself and Nigel have been on a number of meetings with League Two and to an extent League One chairman and chief executives. And I think the first thing we want to lead with is the conversations we're having, led by some phenomenal leadership of Rick Parry, the new chairman of the EFL, who should be applauded. The EFL have previously got a lot of criticism, and I think they deserve some praise for the way they've handled this so far through the leadership of Rick Parry and his executive. You know, looking at absolutely many options, including what you've just said there. And at the moment, every option's on the table because we're discussing every single scenario, possibility, ways that we can individually and collectively reduce our cost as a club and as a league and as a game.
So I think the question was about regionalisation, and I think this is an interesting one. We've debated this not at league level. It hasn't been debated at all, has it, Danny, in the meetings we've been in? But I think it's an interesting one. And I think you did a calculation, Danny, that it probably only saves us a couple of 100,000 a year. But I think it does bring local rivalries. So I, for one, so this is a personal view, not the view of Leyton Orient, that's a option we should consider.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, we'll be honest with some figures. We have about 13 to 14 overnight stays. Clearly, when you're going to places like Carlisle and Morecambe, you ain't doing that in the day. If with regionalisation, you can reduce that down to, say, half a dozen. That saves a lot of money. We are cost effective in the way that we book our hotels and coach travel and what have you. But every single penny we can try and save is going to massively help as we go on that road to sustainability. And then there's the other side. If we've got the likes of more local derbies, the South Ends, etc. of the world, there are going to be more people that will come to it. And we've got some big teams in our league as it is, like Plymouth, and I think that could, from that point of view, help. But I get also the other side of the argument is you can't beat an away trip to sunny Carlisle in the middle of January when you win 2-3-0, whatever it is.
Yeah, rather you than me.
Okay, moving on then. A question from Ian Anderson. And some of these have been a bit paraphrased from the original ones, but how do you see the financial impact affecting the entire club, and how much has the lockdown affected sponsorship and income streams?
Okay, so I'll kick off and then Danny will give the real facts. So I think the first thing I'll say, I think there's a couple of words we need to talk about. One is liquidity. And this is facing every business in the world. Liquidity is how you get through the crisis. And I think we've done a really good job under Danny's leadership of saving costs. I mean, some simple things like the electricity bill, the water bill, the gas bill are all down significantly. We've obviously had the opportunity to take advantage of the government's furlough program. Interesting quiz we should put on the website. How many people had heard of a furlough 2 months ago? So we've done all that. I think we've had great relationships with some of our suppliers. I think it's worth saying we've had also a good relationship with our landlord, who most people know who that is. And Barry has been always has been and continues to be very supportive. So short-term liquidity, we're fine. Some other clubs are struggling despite the same advantages. I think the real thing is long-term solvency. And some clubs may not make it, particularly if we have to play all next season behind closed doors or with a restricted attendance. So, I mean, there are two options that we need to look at as a club. But the bottom line, Ian, in terms of the question you asked, is football will come out better from this. The discussions that Danny touched on are fantastic. I've got some good new friends now. I think Danny has as well. Some good new friends, but football's going to correct itself. It's going to do what was needed. And when I spoke at the Meet the Chairman meeting, whenever that was, January, February, we talked about how football had to become sustainable. I'm more confident now that it's going to become sustainable than ever before.
Yeah, definitely share all those sentiments. Football, for once, has got the opportunity to reset itself. We do not want to look back as a game in 6, 12 months, even 10 years' time and go, oh, we didn't take that opportunity. Coronavirus has fast-tracked the need to get clubs sustainable. We've been shouting about it for 2.5 years. And until we are sustainable for a long, long period of time, we'll continue to shout about it, and even more so now. From a sponsorship point of view, the engagement we've got with our sponsors, I think, will put us in good stead, but we never take that for granted. We're making sure we've got dialogue every single day, as much as we possibly can, with our leading sponsors. That gives us an opportunity to praise Braille Group for their extension, and very welcomed extension and very timely extension, and the work of those and a number of other sponsors and partners. We'll be working very hard with them, and we'll be making sure that our season ticket holders and fans, as much as possible, engage with every single one of our sponsors and partners, because it's a cliche, but it's true. We are all part of the family. We're all in this together.
Absolutely. The next question, and it's an area that Nigel touched on briefly there. If the club is to finish the season behind closed doors, just how detrimental will this be? So that's from Paul Brooks, and I guess trying to understand the workings of how that will play out.
Well, okay, so behind closed doors, I think, to be fair, we don't really know what that means, but I'm going to use the proposed Bundesliga proposal on it, which they've now been delayed a month. They were going to start on May the 9th. I think it's been put back a month. But there was a very exact calculation of how many people will be in the ground, 243, I think it was. So that's what it means. I think it's interesting as to how the players react about this, because, you know, any club, not only Leyton Orient, players, we've got a bunch of young men with wives, some of whom are pregnant, some have got illnesses, pre-existing conditions. So our first concern has to be, is it a healthy environment for people to play in? And Danny talks about Rick Parry. He says in every meeting, that's the number one priority. So let's assume we get through that. Let's assume we do all the testing. And my doctor told me this morning here in the US that the antibody test is not reliable yet. So that's something we have to take into account. So if it takes place, I think Leyton Orient is actually in a better position than many, because streaming is, I think, one of our core assets. Obviously, the only way the fans can see it is by having it streamed. Though Danny's got one or two other clever ideas, but we won't go into those today. But it's going to be behind closed doors, probably 200 odd people. Streaming will be the only access. Now, I think that also throws up another question. How likely do I think we are to finish the season? I personally think reading what's going on every day, running businesses of different types every day, I personally will give it less than a 10% chance that we will actually play out the season. But that's my view. I hope I'm wrong, because I want to see some football. But Danny may have a different view.
No, I think I've obviously been in the same discussions, or the vast majority of them, and I agree with every syllable you've just said there.
Fantastic. Well, I guess the next question, which came in from Ben Boatman, kind of tailed on to the end of what you were saying there, Nigel. We said, with the National League clubs voting to end the season today, and the same with Scottish Championship, League One and League Two leagues, can you see League One and League Two wanting to do the same, and do those leagues set a precedent for other leagues and for everyone else to follow?
I would say it sets a precedent. I think it's a consideration. I mean, I think we need to make a decision in the next, let's say, 2-3 weeks maximum, because the way player contracts work. So let's use Luke as I'm looking at him. Let's say he was a player and he's out of contract at the end of June. The way players
better at media
playing.
He's better at media work playing, thankfully.
Didn't see my
well, yeah, but Danny, you missed a trick, because if he was half good, you may be able to get some money out of Martin.
Yeah, good point.
So let's say Luke then was out of contract at the end of June. The way it works is there is a extra month thrown in if you haven't got a new club. So the way to think about it is that the contracts really go until the end of July. So we've got until the end of July, and then Rick Parry said we've got 56 days to play the games. So that comes back to like the middle of June, as then a 3-week period that clubs have said universally that they need to get players fit again. So that takes us back to probably close to the end of May. I think there's then a preparation time. So we need to make a decision fairly quickly.
Absolutely. Another question that's come around the kind of cancellation and uncertainty was from Robin Saunders. He touched on a few areas, but the one I picked out here is that it's all possible to limit a crowd at football matches to comply with social distancing. And Nigel, like you picked upon earlier with the Bundesliga, what would that look like for Orient fans, and how would we kind of facilitate maybe a reduced capacity if that was to be the case?
Yeah, it may be better for Danny to talk about that, because he's actually thought about that quite a lot.
Yeah, we've got a sort of mini internal group, and I'm also discussing with a number of counterparts in other sports. I've been speaking to Essex Cricket, for example, about how this might work in practice and in theory, and all we can do at the moment is work on, as we're able to open the Braille Group Stadium again, whether it's in front of a reduced crowd or a full crowd, it'll clearly be reduced before it's full, how we can safely do that. And we've got to completely think outside the box. We've got to look about how we can get people safely into the stadium, give them the confidence that if they're coming to a game that they can do so in a safe environment, that there's more cleaning stations, there's more opportunity to use hand sanitizer, it's safe to go into the shop, it's safe to eat at the ground, it's safe to have a drink at the ground. The list goes on. There's going to be a huge amount we're going to have to do that in the past we would have just put a soap dispenser up and thought, oh, that'll be all right. We have got to completely look, as every football club and every entertainment business has got to look at, everything in the same way that restaurants are, and Nigel can certainly allude to more on that. We're going to have to do a lot more than we've ever done before, because there's nothing we can do apart from give massive confidence to a fan when they choose to come to a game.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting on the restaurant side in Hong Kong, where they've gone back, restaurants are limited to 50% capacity. The toilets, it's like every other toilet. You've then got some issues you don't quite think about people coming through the turnstiles and touching the turnstiles. There's all kinds of stuff, as Danny said, that is really tough to to work through. So I have to say this is probably the most difficult issue I've ever had to work on, and I've worked for 50 years. So thank God we got people like Danny and team who've done a spectacular job. I should take this opportunity of working every day, thinking hard about what's going on. They've taken on some heavy lifting for people who've been furloughed. But the creativity that's gone on in the club in the last few weeks is fantastic. And I'll single you out, Luke. The game you did with the FIFA game, where you got 128 teams from around the world, was awesome. And we picked up a lot of very important contacts that would be vital for Leyton Orient going forward.
Absolutely, thank you. Next question was from Sam Harborn, who's asked, if the games are behind closed doors, will they be streamed free to season ticket holders?
Yeah, it's a good question, Sam. So we're working with our providers. Where we're benefit is that we're not on the standard EFL platform, so we're in more control of our destiny regarding streaming. And Nigel alluded to it there. Streaming could become nearly one of our main income streams, if not the main income stream, when we're playing games behind closed doors. So when I say we'll be putting a campaign out, obviously we had a meeting earlier on, Luke, we will be chucking the kitchen sink and then going to get another kitchen sink to throw at our streaming to appeal to new audiences, etc., etc. We will be working on a mechanism for season ticket holders that they can watch that in a, ideally in a free environment. And then I'll go back to the first question I answered, I think. We will not leave any season ticket holders out of pocket. The support the season ticket holders have given us that over years and years, but especially over the last few years where we've got over 4,300. Again, we'll never take those people for granted. I don't think we ever have, and we certainly never will. And that will apply to our streaming service, and we'll be asking them to support that, many of which clearly would never have used the streaming because they're at the games. But this will be the opportunity to see how good the product is and to share it with a relative, whether they're in Boston or in London or in New Zealand. We really want to spread the Orient word because we're a pretty special club, and we need to realise that.
I think what I'd say about streaming, Luke, you weren't at the club. I mean, you were winning the FA Trophy from us when we were in the National League. But what many fans perhaps don't realise is we spent 2 years fighting the National League over streaming. I mean, if there's an organisation that's behind the times, it's the National League. And as many people know, David, my son, who's on the board, works in digital, works in streaming. He's probably one of the leaders actually in the world in the subject. And to get the National League to understand that streaming was an option was an uphill battle. But when I think about it, that battle is going to be really helpful if we are restricted in attendances. I think the fact we're off, as Danny said, on our own platform effectively is also helpful because it gives us more flexibility. And then the other good move, mid-season, we brought in the app, which I think has been pretty well received by our fans. That's another very useful asset. So when I look back, 3 decisions that weren't big ones could become very significant in the way we go forward, hopefully for a very restricted time.
Absolutely. As you do move on, I will just say, if you are watching on YouTube and you want to ask any questions, and you can use the comment box on the right-hand side to throw a couple in, and we'll try and get through as many as we can in the time we have. Away from digital now, back to the real thing and pitches. Bill Linnell's asked, is there any update on the possibility of getting the Football League to allow plastic pitches similar to the ones in the Premier League? Do you want to start that one, Nigel?
Was it Phil?
Bill, yeah.
Okay, Phil, thanks for the question. Yeah, okay, so we talked about that when we had the sustainability meeting, which is probably where it came. And it was interesting, as I said earlier, we've got to know other clubs pretty well. And Simon, who's the chairman of Plymouth, very well run club, nice guy, very bright guy. He looked at the deck I sent to the Football League, and he picked up on that. I think I've said this before, but I'll repeat it. I think I've moved away from artificial pitches like some we saw in the National League with the likes of Harrogate and Bournemouth and Sutton and Bromley. I think that's the right group, isn't it, Danny?
That's the one, yeah.
There is, and I've got all the evidence behind me on the floor, some evidence that both players don't like the 4G pitches and some injury. There is some significant injury differences between those pitches and grass pitches as measured in the MLS. Where I think we're excited about going is and there's two brands, there's the CIS pitch and the Deso pitch. And if I can use my fingers, both of them kind of weave cooled and grass together. I think it's something like 80% of the Premier League have a CIS or Deso pitch. We're looking at that. It means we could do things like concerts. We could do more games on the field. We could even do training, which we don't do now. We had a very good meeting with Martin Keown, who came along to the club, the ex-English captain. I was on TalkSport, and he and I kind of debated artificial pitches fairly vigorously. And we invited him to come along. We had an excellent meeting. And I think we concluded that's the way forward. There's only one downside. The cost is about £1 million.
Yeah.
So that's something we will continue to look at. But I'm pretty convinced in the next few years we'll have a CIS or Deso, and there's another brand now, I hope we don't know the name, pitch out there, which I think will be great for the future of Leyton Orient.
Absolutely. So in terms of the questions we've had in, got one from Owen Williams, who says, and again, this is maybe blue sky thinking to when we're at the end of this whole pandemic, but what will the target be for next season?
Okay. I always hesitate to do targets by season. I mean, as everyone knows, we got out of the National League ahead of our so-called goal. We always said that we'd spend 3 or 4 years at each level. So for me to say we want promotion next year doesn't fit with that. I think we'd like to see substantial improvement. I mean, this year has been simply amazing when you think about it. We go to Wembley, and Luke, congratulations for winning. He was at Fylde, if you don't know. That's why we keep chipping away at him. Yeah. And he probably went out and got drunk that night. And we got drunk by losing, right?
I think we all did.
So, and that was the last time I saw Justin. Who would know that we'd lose Justin? Obviously, that's been an absolutely a dreadful thing for us to handle this year. And then we go through some self-inflicted impacts on who is the head coach and what have you. And we think we kind of got the season steady, see how far we can go up. Ross is talking about making sure the goal difference is positive. And then this hits us. I mean, what a year. So it's tough to say what next year's going to bring, but I'd like to think substantial improvement. When we finished before the close down, we were 17th. I personally think we would have ended up a bit higher. So let's take a number, 14th, 15th. I'd like to think that we can move up, perhaps be challenging for the playoffs.
Absolutely. Right, moving on. Another question you've had in whilst sitting on here is from Jake Walker, and he said, I see that we're after a new shirt sponsor. How is that hunt going, and does the pandemic affect it?
Yeah, the hunt and the discussions are ongoing. We've got time on our side, and we're confident that we'll be able to unveil something in the coming weeks. A lot going on behind the scenes, as always, and this gives me another opportunity to thank Dream Team for their simply unbelievable support. I've worked with some great sponsors down the time, like Braille, and in a similar to Braille, Dream Team have absolutely been phenomenal. There was a huge amount of work they put in. I want to thank them for what they've done over the last 2 years.
I would do a tease and say Danny has had a really creative idea on sponsorship, so watch this space.
Very nice. We had a question on YouTube. Who was the name? Let me see if I can find it. It's Daniel Roll, and he said, could we see more Tottenham youth coming in next season? As George Marsh has been amazing.
Yeah.
Is that a link that's positive at the moment? And can we see more of that, do you think?
George has been amazing, and this is a really interesting question. And it also gets back to football finance. If you go to other countries in Europe, there's strong relationships between clubs at our level and let's call it the equivalent of the Premier League. I think that's something that should be built on. We've got an excellent relationship with Tottenham. Martin's obviously got a very good relationship with Aston Villa, with Dean Smith there. I'm working very hard to make sure that Luke and Danny don't miss the newfound relationship with Moscow Lokomotiv, who beat us, what was it, 6-3 in the FIFA thing?
6-3, yeah.
Yeah, but they did have a professional gamer. But I think this is the way forward, and I think, Jake, that's a great question. I mean, Spurs, I think, have been delighted with what we've done with George. George is a nice guy, actually. I had a long chat with him last time I was at the training ground. And then we brought in, what's his name, Danny? Kazaya
Sterling.
Yeah. Who obviously hasn't done anything yet because we've been shut down. So I think we've got a good relationship with Spurs. I think that will continue. And I think right at the heart of this football finance thing, one of the goals, the Premier League clearly think under 23 football is not working very well. They like people to go out and play men's football. I think the loan program will be probably enhanced a bit. It also helps lower league finances at our level. So I think your question's spot on, and I can see it going and becoming greater relationships with perhaps more than one club.
Absolutely. Another question in on YouTube here. Again, it's an area you kind of touched over, and I guess it will be more just kind of guesswork at the moment. But if the season is cancelled, would you expect there to be promotions and relegations?
Well, okay. So Danny and I talk about this every day, and then say, no, we shouldn't be talking about this because it doesn't affect us. We've got enough things to worry about, but it is a good academic exercise. And there seems to be a shift in thinking to making it a positive move. In other words, if you're in like the top 3, you go up, but no one comes down. So as one of our board members said on the Leyton Orient board call yesterday, doesn't that mean you have an uneven number of clubs? Probably. But I think you may lose a few clubs, a bit like the Berries. You then also have this complicated thing about what happens in the National League. I mean, I think most people I talk to think Barrow should come up because we've got a slot. You then say, is Harrogate, who happen to be second, should they come up? And then Notts County have got this, and I think this is unbelievable. So I'm sure you're going to get some Notts County fans commenting about what I'm about to say. Notts County, who I think are in 4th, isn't it? Something like that, or 5th, claiming they go up because they were the highest placed club last year to go down. So this is going to be a big debate, and we've seen what's happening in Scotland and some other countries. So we're not giving it any brain power, but observing from the outside, it's a really fascinating question.
Absolutely. Another one from YouTube just now. It kind of links in with a question we had from someone called Neil as well. Is will you need volunteers to get things up and running again? And then after that, I'll lead on to another question. But yeah, I'll start there. Will we need volunteers to help get the club up and running again?
Watch this space. We will be needing volunteers in various different mechanisms. We want to make sure that we're a sustainable football club. This is not moving paid people into volunteer models. That's not what we're looking at. But this is looking at ways that we can use the phenomenal support that we've got through the Supporters Club, through Loft, for various fundraising strategies, the old school 50-50 draws, etc., etc. And there'll be stuff that we're wanting to do in a digital world in the interim, but in the long term back at the stadium, we want to use everything that we can, and we'll be very much, if a fan is able to help, we'll be finding them something that they can do to assist this great club.
Yeah, and the kind of other side of that question was, with supporters at the moment, what can they be doing to help the club in the current situation?
My stance on that, and then ask Nigel to answer as well, is there's an awful lot that can be done. We've been very clear with our season tickets. Sounds tickled you, Luke. We're very honest with our season tickets that if you can purchase now in the initial early bird, and that early bird we will review on government and EFL advice as we get near to the end of May. But if you can renew and purchase a new season ticket, please do. We couldn't be more grateful. And if you can't, do not worry, there'll be plenty of time. So in addition to that, we're launching a few new schemes over the coming weeks. All I can say is keep an eye on our popular website and social media channels that Luke and his team and the marketing guys are putting out. There'll be an awful lot that people can do. And then as and when we're going to do an extension of our retail sale, and as and when we are able to launch our streaming product for the remainder of this season, if that is to be, and for next season, that will become absolutely pivotal. We spoke about streaming an awful lot because it is beyond critical for us now in terms of that. So there'll be many ways, but I'll hand over to Nigel because I know there'll be other bits to add to that.
Yeah, not many. Danny covered it, but firstly, the fans have been great. And I think what we've tried to do, and Luke's been right in the middle of this, is trying to keep everyone engaged. I mean, life without sport has been terrible. I mean, thank God I've got the NFL draft to watch on Thursday night. My beloved Miami Dolphins. So if anyone's interested, that starts at 8 o'clock UK time, 1 o'clock UK time in the morning. That's the closest to sport we've got at the moment. So I'm really excited about that. I've got a Zoom drink going at the same time. But people are missing sports. So we've tried to fill the vacuum, and I've watched a couple of the games that's gone on from the past. Like I watched the other day, the Arsenal Orient game from, I think it was 1972. I realised how bad the pitch was, Danny. But that was in the day, not under your control. Season ticket, Danny's mentioned. We've got the annual general meeting coming up in the next few weeks on, I've forgotten the date, but
Monday.
Yeah, so to tell you what we're doing there, this is really for people who got shares. But we've taken the opportunity to give shareholders the opportunity to ask the first few questions. But we're encouraging all fans to come. We're going to be very open, tell everyone what's going on at the club. And we think, given that you haven't got any football to watch, this is your way of connecting with Leyton Orient. Streaming, I'd ask every fan to think about 20 people who could become Leyton Orient fans in the future if, unfortunately, we're behind closed doors or restricted or whatever it is. You know, we want fans around the world, and you only have to get people watching a club once to get them to become a fan. That's what you could do. I mean, I think target 20 people each and get them to become Leyton Orient fans.
Good stuff. A question that's just come in now. We'll probably can combine the two of these. Is in regards to the break in contract negotiations and players who may be out of contract this summer, where are we with those players, and how has the current situation affected that?
Cool. That's kind of a big question. Well, as I said earlier, the contractual situation is every club has players out of contract. Now, what's interesting, and Danny may have better numbers than me, I'd say we got more players in contract than most clubs. Would you say, Danny?
We have, yeah.
I mean, one club I've talked to a lot this week have only got 3 under contract. Another club that's pretty well up our table have got 5. So I think we've learned something from how to balance the squad. And I was talking to Martin about that the other day. So obviously the players who are in contract continue. The players who are out of contract, the chances are they won't get another club. So they will get paid by us under the current system until July. So I think people want to know about this. There's a lot of discussions going on about deferrals, cuts, and all kinds of stuff. We're taking the policy that, we don't want to get out there ahead of everyone else. We'll keep working with the league. We're working with the PFA. I want to just take this opportunity. And someone accused me of being too nice to the PFA. I'm not being nice. They have a job. Their job is to protect the interests of professional footballers. And if I was running the union, I'd do the same. So I think it's important that we go through the process. We've taken advantage every time we can of making sure Leyton Orient's a leader. Good example. The League Two and League One were asked for 3 representatives to talk to the PFA, the Premier League, and the EFL on behalf of the players. So this is a player or the player reps. So internally, the players chose Matt Harrold, and he went to a meeting last week, which was actually chaired by Gary Neville. And I've listened to Gary quite a few times in the last week, and I know people have views about Salford, and he's clearly got a view that Salford's got to get up the leagues as fast as possible. But he's doing some really good things. I think he's going to be really a positive force in getting an agreement that could bring about either pay cuts or deferrals or whatever it is for the future of football. I think he's doing it in the interests of football at large. And he's clearly very influential, and I have to say, very articulate. So we've got the bunch of players who are out of contract. We're obviously concerned about their welfare, and we'll keep looking at that very closely. Not sure that totally answers the question, because it's a very difficult, complex question to answer. But Danny, did I miss anything?
No, I think you've covered that from both angles.
Question I've had in personally from Par from the commercial team. He's asked if do I not trust my missus enough for her to cut my hair? I think you can see the answer to that is no.
Much as mine with my hair.
But yeah, by the way, Joanna cut Ian, my son's hair last week. She actually did a good job, but I'm nowhere close to needing a haircut.
Yeah, nice. Worrying times. Another one from Les K was with regards to the kit for next season, and could we see a return for the braces?
Yeah, hi Les. I know you've been an advocate for that one, so I'm not going to say yes, not going to say no. As Nigel posted a tease about the other element of it. Watch this space. We're confident the designs we've got for the kits next year will excite, and I think our already busy retail team will go up a notch. And we're hoping to be able to launch those designs in the very near future.
Yeah, just as we, I think, come to a close now, we obviously touched on the retail there, Danny. Did you want to give a brief update? Obviously, we mentioned about orders earlier on today. Do you want to perhaps give an update for people that might have missed that? Yeah,
I'll give an update as well as praise. We've done a lot of praise on that because there's an awful lot of people working behind the scenes, the unsung heroes. Obviously, we furloughed a large proportion of staff, and there are people, including yourself, Luke, working behind the scenes. And we've almost had one person dealing with the dispatch of nearly 1,800 retail orders. So I give regular updates to Nigel and the rest of the board. We're doing more in retail sales at the moment than we are when we're normally open for match days. So it's about the only revenue stream we've got at the moment as concrete that's coming in. But we will dispatch those orders as quickly as we can, and there will be another level of sale that we'll announce in the probably next week. But yeah, thank you for everyone that's ordered. Thank you for their patience, and we'll be adding new lines to the range as we get closer to summer and the build up to what will hopefully be the start of the season.
Fantastic. I guess then moving on to a final question on pitch hires. That's something that's been I think communicated by the club already, but Danny, did you want to go over that one more time?
Yeah, so again, the work that commercial, marketing and media teams have done on our pitch hires, when we came in 2.5 years ago, the pitch hire income was minuscule. where we've chucked resource at it. You know, we were doing a good, healthy six-figure sum. That was before we opened the bars and the catering outlets and what have you. So that is going to have an effect. We've been in contact, and we've obviously have for now cancelled / postponed the first set of pitch hires, but probably in all likelihood we're going to have to postpone all of them and hopefully facilitate as many of those as we can during the summer months, obviously scheduling around the first team games. But it is a real shame from all aspects, but that was an important part of our non-match day offering at the Brown Group Stadium. And yeah, if it's not this season, we'll be going even bigger next season. Nigel mentioned about the importance of the Deso or assist pitch. We turn down pitch hire bookings every single week. Josh and the rest of the commercial and operational teams, we get inquiries from film companies, from people wanting to hire the stadium and the pitch every single week, and we have to turn some of those down because of the usage on the pitch. We've obviously got to protect it for the most important thing of the first team, but that's something that another avenue would allow us to even develop non-match day even further than what we already have.
Danny, why don't you just give an update on what we're doing on the pitch right now?
Yeah, so Colin's Colin and Taylor, the two, shall we say, working literally night and day on the pitch, so they've not been furloughed. Myself, Martin and Ross and the board are in regular dialogue with those two. And there's a huge amount of work that will take place in the coming weeks. We're going to do what we pretty much would have done in pitch preparation for the summer. We'd rather get that work done now, and then if we are to play those remaining 4 games at the stadium, the pitch is in a good as condition as it can be, and we'll have to accept that the season's going to, or the period of the season is going to be probably longer than normal, and we'll have to carefully manage that through in the coming months and season ahead. And praise to those guys for everything we're doing, and we want to give the best service we can to Ross and the guys.
Absolutely. Well, we'll thank everyone for the questions that they've sent in this evening on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook as well, and as well by email. Before we do go, we'll give you both an opportunity for anything you maybe wanted to say, or perhaps just a goodbye message for now. So start with yourself, Danny.
Yeah, for me, we've spoken an awful lot about bringing money into the tills and praising this, praising that. I just want to, again, it sounds corny and a cliche, I want to praise the fans. The dialogue that they've given has been excellent. As well as all of that, we've done an awful lot with our fans, and we'll continue to do that. And if there's anyone's got any ideas of how we can engage more with our community and with our fan base, we're all ears. That genuinely is the case. That's not an aggressive comment. We really want to, if there is something we can do. We've done birthday messages from the players to youngsters, older people, etc. I think I've done one that was a 98-year-old as well as someone who just had a kid. But if there's anything that we can do, and I know Ross has done a number of as well, and a number of players, you've only got to ask, and we'll do everything we can. If there is someone in the Orient family that's vulnerable that we can go and support, to taking food deliveries, if it's safe to do so, we'll do everything we can. And we're confident next week we're going to be launching a couple of new schemes that will enable us to get out into the community in a safe way. And watch this space on that, but re-stress that message. Thanks for everything you're doing. Stay well. And if you are vulnerable or know someone who is in the family, just let us know, and we will do absolutely everything we can. If it's picking up the phone, doing deliveries of food, we will do it, because you are a massive part of this club.
Yeah, I just like to start off by saying I'd like to thank Danny, Martin, and the rest of the team for a fantastic job that they're doing in unusual circumstances and things we've never faced before, and new challenges come up every single day. So great job there. I'd like to thank the fans, like Danny said. But I want to finish with a message that I think is quite important. We all want to get back to playing football. We all want to get back to watching sports, as I said earlier. But I can't underline enough, that has to be secondary to any one individual's health and safety. We've got to follow the instructions. We've got to take this thing seriously. 50 million people died in the Spanish flu of 1918/19. Every single one of you got to take this seriously. If you think you can shortcut it, you can't. So we want our fans to get through this. You've been brilliant, but don't take any risks. And despite the fact we all love Leyton Orient, and I've supported the club, as you all know, for 61 years, it's not as important as everyone's health. So let's take this really seriously. But I want to close by saying thank you, Luke, for putting this on. Thanks to our fans as always. Up the O's.
Thank you, guys.